welcome to the second in this video series, Flask Part 2, where we're going to look at developing our Flask website. And in today's lesson, we're actually going to be looking at some of the HTML and the CSS, some of the front end. If you pause the screen and have a look at the steps that we're going to follow, that might help you as we continue. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how to get back in. Now, I remember starting off in web development, certainly with Django, and following on with tutorials and just not having a clue how to get back in to the state that I was in with command prompt running the server. So I'm going to make sure that we do that, assuming that you can't remember where you left off and you switched off your machine. How do we get back in and run the server and start our website again? We're going to look at making a templates folder and some actual HTML and CSS. I'll go slowly enough that if you've never done HTML, you'd be able to just sort of follow along and obviously do some additional reading after that. We're going to then use this thing called Ginger to actually take some data from the Python file and put it on the website, which is getting closer to how a real website would work with a database, make a layout template, and then run the server and see something really beautiful come up on the screen. So let's get started. So here we are back on my desktop, and assuming you've shut down everything and you're doing this tutorial the next morning or whenever it is, how do we get back in and get the server running, activate the virtual environment, all those things? Let's have a look. So to begin with, I could either open up the command prompt here, or remember the additional way is that you could actually open up the folder itself. So for instance, I could go into the F drive, which happens to be my memory stick, and I could get into the folder that I would like to open the command prompt in which case at the moment I think it's my folder. So remember, here's my virtual environment. So I click over here and I type in CMD, which opens up the command prompt in that folder. So I'm now ready to actually activate the virtual environment. And remember, you cannot work outside of that because that's where you've imported Flask, that's where everything is. It's very important that if you have set up a virtual environment, obviously you have to get back into it before you do any work. So in order to do that, you're going to remember the syntax and the command, and that is env / scripts and activate. So ESA, this is something you have to do a lot, so it's worth remembering it. ESA activate, and you can see you're in your virtual environment env. So now we can actually have a look here. You know that that's your Flask folder where your actual Python file is, where you can actually run the file to run the server. So I can cd into it, remember change directory, cd my Flask folder. I'm in it now, let's just check. You can see all the files which are there. Yep, you've got one file called bigquestions.py, and then I can just type in Python bigquestions.py, and there we are running the server. Now remember to actually see what your website, which is not terribly exciting at the moment, looks like is you copy and paste that, you open a browser, paste that in, and there you have it. And we also did an about route, and you can see that it says about this awesome website. So let's open up Sublime, which is my choice of IDE here, and there's my folder, which you can open up again, or it should be, if you were using it from the night before, it just come up, and you can see that there, right there in the root directory, is my bigquestions.py. Now so far, the website that we have is not, you can't really call it a website. It has two h1 tags, which is a little HTML tag, and it has a heading, but can't really call that a website. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a templates folder, which is step 2 in Sublime Text, or you can just create it manually, and in it we're going to make two HTML documents, which are going to be actual web pages, and we're going to render them. So let's have a look at how that's done. So here is Sublime Text. Now you can just go back to your folder and actually make the folder there. Let's do everything from Sublime Text. It makes it much easier, or whichever IDE you happen to be using. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, like this one, and it provides all kinds of interesting features and tools like syntax and, as you'll see in a minute, error checking. So in my Flask folder, we have this one.py file. I'm going to right click and say new folder and make a folder called templates. So that produces a little folder called templates, and inside that, so I'm just make sure that I'm really inside it, and say new file, and I'm going to make two HTML pages, one called home and one called about. So how do you do that? You sort of click on that, say file, save as. You can Control S as a shortcut. I'm just going to do that, and let's call this one the home.html. That .html at the end is very important, otherwise it's just any other file. So .html, and let's make another one called about.html. So we've got two. Let's open them up, home and about HTML. Now Sublime Text is very clever. If you type in HTML and tab, the tab key, which is just diagonally left to the 1, it sort of gives you a ready-made HTML template, which is not hard. You can type it out yourself. You can get it anywhere off the web. But every HTML page, now HTML is not really a language, it's like a markup language, which is necessary for every website in the world that you see is created in HTML. So it has a head. Think of a human being. It has a head and it has a body, and it always has these tags. So you can see that it has a starting HTML tag, and at the end it has the same tag but it has a backslash. So if we were, it's quite simple. In the same way, you have a starting head tag and you have an ending head tag. Body, and again it ends with that backslash and body. So this is the basic setup of an HTML page. Let's have a look at how we can populate it. Now, assuming no knowledge of HTML, this might be a slightly steep learning curve. However, HTML is really, really simple, and it is just a way of sort of marking up and adding code that allows a web page to be rendered. So let's look at the different things, and let's look at a few simple commands. So title, if I put something in here, it's the home page. If I write home page in there, the body is like the main part of the website, and you can have H1 tags, which are heading tags. So H1 is the biggest tag, and the H2, H3, they get smaller progressively. So let's write something like welcome to, well, let's just call it big questions for now, right? And we can have a paragraph tag, which is in little P tags like that. Remember, starting tag and ends with a P, and in there we can have a little paragraph, welcome to this amazing website, and we can go on from there. Now this is not going to look very exciting because we haven't added CSS, which is cascading style sheets, which is where all the formatting and the fonts and the coloring and the exciting stuff comes in. But for now, it's just going to be really simple. So that's our home page, and we could have something at the bottom maybe. So I'm going to add a break, and at the bottom we could have a little paragraph saying thank you for visiting. Something like that. Now, I could save this, and how do you actually view this? Now, I'm not going to view it using the server. For a minute, let me just show you what this would look like. So if I said open containing folder, you can see it's there. It looks a bit like a text file, which it is because you can just double click in it and you can edit it there. But actually, because it is an HTML file, you can also open with a browser. And you can see there you have your website. Exciting, it says big questions, welcome to this amazing website, thank you for visiting. So nothing terribly exciting, but it's there. Now notice we didn't actually run it on the server, so it's not actually running on our Flask server, it was there, and that's because we haven't connected it yet. So here is the home page. I'm going to add, do the same thing for the about page. And we can add a little H1 tag which says about this website maybe, and a paragraph tag which says on this site we will attempt to ask incredibly hard questions and see if we can answer them. okay, bike, what is the meaning of life? Something to think about. Save that, Control S, and we've got a home page and an about page. But what we want now is to run the server, and for that home page to come up when I type in home, and the same for the about page. Now, keep in mind that this actual thing over here is referring to the local host, local being your desktop or whatever machine that you're running it from. When you actually put this on an actual web server, that would be your domain name. So for instance, that would be wtestandtrack /about or whatever it is. So for now, that is just the local host, and we've got different routes which point to the different parts of the website. So how do we get that pointing in the right direction? That's what we're going to look at first. So be patient. We are going to get back into this web page and make it look a whole lot more interesting. But for now, let's look at doing the actual functional bits. So we're going to go back into our bigquestions.py. This is one single Python file where we're going to do all this stuff. And what we're trying to achieve is, in this bit, this is a function called hello world, and we're returning a h1 tag, which is that. But we want it to return an actual full HTML page. So how do we do that? So the first step is at the top over here, we need to add an import, which is going to be render template. And this is, the word render is referring to actually rendering the page on the screen. So we import that little thing over there, and we come back down here, and in the root, instead of saying return an h1 tag, we type something slightly different, and we write return. We use our render template. You can see it comes up with the option for that, and we say home.html, which is referring to that HTML page which is in the templates folder. So we could do exactly the same here. We could say, get rid of that, and we can say return render template and about.html, assuming that you're getting all the file names correct. Now, once I've saved that, we need to go back into our server, which happened to be running. Let's just make sure. So I'm going to press Control-C to stop the server. There we are. And remember, you can press the up arrow key to get your last command, which in this case was Python bigquestions.py, to run the server again. So it's running, and go back to this, and you can see that the about route, that rhymes, so it feels like I should be using it, now brings up the actual web page that we just made, and the home page also brings up the web page that we just made. So let's make a few additional beautifications, if I can call it that, to the home and the about page. One thing we could do is, for instance, we could get a picture and add it to the home page. Let's have a look at how that could be done. Just for educational purposes, if I wrote big questions, for instance, images, we could get any of these pictures. I think the one I did get was that one. Now, this is not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is actually to save the image in a folder and then refer to that folder's path. But just for ease and simplicity for now, I'm just going to go copy image address, go back to our Sublime text, and underneath here, this is where I would like to display the image. I'm going to write img, which is image src source equals, and I paste in that huge URL. Right, now that's going to look probably very huge and not very good. Let's have a look. I save it, I refresh, and you should see an image come up on the screen. Now, while that's loading, something for you to consider is you're going to be doing a lot of HTML if you're doing any front-end development, and you're not going to remember all of this. No web developer does. So how do you know what to write and what commands to write? One of the best sites used by professionals and students alike is W3 Schools. So you go to W3 Schools and you click on HTML, on the left hand side, if you click on Learn HTML there, it gives you absolutely every command in the world that you can think of to do with HTML. So right now I just added an image, so if I click on images here, it gives me the code for images. I just paste it in and adapt it as I see fit. So if you want a form or a list or a table or anything interesting, you can just refer to this site. You don't have to memorize it and have it all in your head. So we've got this, and you can do things with images. Again, look up W3 Schools. You can adapt the width and the height. I'm going to leave it like that for now. And then we could, so that's rendered over there. Then we can add something called CSS. Now this is where it gets really, really interesting. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and there are different ways of doing it. Again, for simplicity, I'm going to show you the simplest way, which is just adding between the head tags here a style sheet. So everything that is going to be in your CSS will go between these tags style and backslash style. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm just going to Google and I'm going to say beautiful CSS for H1 and P, because if you notice on my website I've not used much, I've just used H1 tags and P tags. There's different HTML that you can use, and you can apply CSS to any of those things. But for now, let's have a look at what comes up. So it says 20 examples of beautiful CSS. Great, let's have a look what's there. Now this is all CSS. It's basically giving us some styles that will be applied to our H1 tags or P tags. And you'll see how this is really useful. If you have a massive website with hundreds of different pages, you can have a single style sheet, click, and it applies that style to everywhere, the consistency of the website. Every H1 tag would have the same font and color, for instance. So I'm going to go down. Let's just use this for now. So I'm going to copy these CSS tags here and put them between the style tags in my HTML document. So we don't actually have an H2 tag, but let's leave that there for now and I'll show you how that works. If I save that and I now refresh my page, it's a little bit slow, you should see the changes applied. If I could do the same thing in the About page, that was the About page, which is why it's not coming up in the home page. So in the head tag there, I can add style. Now, even as I'm writing this, you'll notice that I'm repeating myself. I'm pasting in code here, which I'm also pasting in here. So you can see that's a problem. That's not a good thing. There's a principle in web design called DRY, D-R-Y, don't repeat yourself. And we're going to look at how we can do that. But for now, I've got that. And it's asking me to purchase Sublime Text. I'm just going to say cancel for now. And I refresh. So if I click on the About page, you can see that the CSS has been applied there. For some reason, hopefully it has also been applied here, and for some reason it hasn't. So let's have a look. It's good to troubleshoot, figure out what's going on. Style tag, H1 tag. Is that definitely being rendered here? Home.html. Right. Now, it would be useful for us to actually call that home. So it's easy to forget to leave that function, and it's useful to always be organized in the way you name things. Save that again, and save that again, refresh the page, and there you can see CSS has been applied. And so again, nothing hugely exciting, but CSS is exciting. One wonderful website is codepen.io, and you can look up exciting CSS and JavaScript effects and literally just paste them into your site and they're applied. And with CSS you can create everything from styles for fonts to complex animations, particles flying around the place, cool effects for buttons, and we'll look at some of that as we go along. So there we have a rendered home page and an about page, and we're getting closer to this being a very, very beautiful website. Now remember, the whole point of a website is that we can actually take, you can have static websites, maybe a hairdresser's website, which is just you visit the page and it just has information on it. But many websites, if you think of Netflix or any website that has a login registration form, it takes data from a database and it displays it on the screen, or it works with that data. So what we're going to do before we actually set up the database, which will be in a later video, is we're going to create some dummy data in the Python file, and I'm going to show you how you can display that on a web page. And this is going to be really important that you understand. We're going to use Ginger, which is a weird word which rhymes with ginger, ninja, to display data on the page as well. So let's have a look how that is done. Here's our Flask folder again. So everything is as we set it up. We have an about page and a home page in the templates folder, and we have this big questions.py file, which is where we're putting all the functional stuff. So in this big questions.py, underneath the, just one second, so just underneath this bit over here, which says name above the roots, we're going to create what, not an actual database, but sort of dummy data simulating a database, so to speak. So I'm going to have a variable, let's call it reviews for now, because the comment is sort of like a review or whatever. I could call it comments, and this is going to be a list. So if you have learned Python, you know that there are different data types. List is one of them. So I'm just going to have these square brackets and reviews in there. And in the reviews, I'm going to have a dictionary of items. So don't worry if you don't know what a list and a dictionary is. Just copy the way that I'm writing this code for this variable reviews. So in the dictionary, I'm just going to indent that. I'm going to have 3 fields. I'm going to have the title, and the title is going to be sort of the response. So remember, the question is going to be, what is the meaning of life? And when a user responds, they're going to respond with a catchy title. It could be something like, what is meaning? A clever person would say, what is meaning? And then you make sure you have a comma after that. You have name, which is going to be the next one. Again, this could be anything you like. My name would be, say, Mrs. Marvin, comma. And then finally you're going to have a comment. Now my comment would be in response to the question, what is the meaning of life? I would say, well, another question needs to be asked first. What is meaning? Right? So that could be what I say. And I have a comma after that. You could also have a date posted. So let's just do that for now as well. Date posted. And that would be, say, the 12th of June. Or, yeah, 26th of June it is today. And I don't need a comment at the end. Now I'm going to have another set of data after that. So just beneath it, another dictionary items there. Again, let's indent and let's have another title. Now obviously easy way to do this is just to cut and paste. So let me cut and paste that in here. And this is going to be someone else. And this person is going to say 42. They're going to be completely unoriginal. And they're going to say 42. This is a person called Joe Blogs. And they're going to say, yep, the meaning of life is 42. Right, and they posted it on the 15th of July or something. So there we have some dummy data answering this all-important question of what is the meaning of life. And the question is, how do we now put this dummy data on the site? How do we render it on the site? So let's go back to our home page here. Let me save that. And on our home page, it says, welcome to this amazing website. It could actually ask the question, couldn't it? So underneath the image, which is here, I'm going to write a little paragraph tag, actually. Get rid of this for now. And say, what, let's have it as an H2. What is the meaning of life? H2, P, please put your answers below. Right, and remember, right at the bottom of the page, we're going to have something like, thank you for visiting. Right, so if I save this, what's the meaning of life? Put your answer below. I would like that dummy data, which we're pretending it's coming from a database, to be displayed down here. So in order to do that, we go back to our home page, where actually I'm on now, and we're going to use something called Ginger. Now think about where you want that to be. You would like it to be here. You want the dummy data to be displayed here. So we're going to use some syntax which you've probably never seen before, which is Ginger. It's like a templating engine which Flask uses, and a particular sort of language which you'll get used to. It's very, very easy. So you use these curly braces and you have 2 percentage marks in between the curly braces, and in between that you write for review. Remember the name of our variable, that list variable was reviews. You could call it anything, comments, but in this case it's for reviews. So for review in reviews, in other words, for each item, this is the item in that list, let's do that, right? We would like it to be displayed on the screen in a particular way. So for instance, I could do this. I could write an H1 tag where I want the title to go. I could have a P tag where I want the, what was the next thing, the name to go. I could also have another P tag, which is paragraph tag, where the, what was it, the comment, actual comment would go. So between here, in the H1 tag, again, this is the syntax. You have these curly braces, double curly braces, and in it I would write review.title. Quite intuitive. For the next one you would write review.name, right? And for the next one, review.comment. And make sure you're getting these names identical to what they've been called in the other page. So that should work. And I'm just going to save that. Now every for loop, again, if you have done any programming, in Python it's not, you don't have to explicitly end a for loop, but here in Ginger you do. So here's the for loop and it ends over here. So I'm going to have these same little curly braces with percentage signs in between and write end for, which ends the for loop. So if I save that now and refresh, so I've refreshed the page and nothing is happening. So if you think about this logically, we have this little variable here called reviews and we've got this dummy data. We're trying to pass it to the home template, the home.html page, and we've done this bit, we've done the Ginger, we've done the other bit, but what we haven't done is we haven't passed, there's nowhere we've actually said we're passing this information into the home page, and we do that in the root. So we go down to the home root, because this is where we're passing it to the home root, and we just simply type in reviews equals reviews. Now you can call this, we'll come back to explaining what these things mean, but for now you just type that in and it will work. So it is passing in that information to the home page. So if I save that now and refresh it, you'll see that the dummy data that was on the .py page is now being displayed on the home page, which is quite exciting. So we've used Ginger to actually display something. And in a lesson to come, which should be the next lesson or lesson after that, you can actually look at how to do this with a dynamic database. So at this point, we're going to look at doing something that's going to really help us in the long term with organization and really understanding how websites are put together. So this is not a simple one-page website. We're assuming that you will be creating a proper like industry level website. So you're going to be doing three things. We're going to be making what's called a base, let's call it for now a layout template. I spelled that wrong, template. To avoid chaos and disorganization. Now the layout template is going to contain only the bits of code that are general to every web page. So you can think about what that might be. For instance, it might be a logo, might be a navigation bar, and in the next video we're going to do Bootstrap, where we're going to redo this website and make it really as it should be. So for now we're just demonstrating the concept. In the layout template, we're going to have this little bit of code, which is some ginger, which is basically saying that this bit, whatever in any given page, if you see a bit of code which is in between these tags, block content and end block, then that bit is going to be the only part of the page which is going to be different. And obviously we add these ginger tags to the layout template and also to the page itself. So let's have a look at how that works. So I'm going to do this to begin with, but let me just show you first so you can appreciate the bits which are duplicated. So if you look at the home page, we have this style sheet which is being applied to the home page. We have exactly the same thing in the about page. Now what if we made another page called a contact page? We'd have to copy and paste this again, and you're allowing yourself for errors to happen, for mistakes to happen. It's not good practice. So there's other things which are going to be common to every page. It could be, for instance, maybe thank you for visiting. Maybe you want that at the end of every page. So what we need to think about is which bits are going to be common to every page. Let's have a look. I'm going to save this as layout and call it layout. And remember, this is often called the base template, but we're going to call it layout for now. And it's a layout HTML. And I'm going to remove from it, I just pasted in the home page here, so I'm going to say I'm going to remove from it anything that is specific to the home page, which is this. Let's look through this. Let me save that as well. Everything else could effectively be on every other page. So that looks good, because that's a layout template. I'm going to save that, and you add this little bit of ginger, you copy and paste it, or you type it. I'm being lazy here. And you go back and you decide where that's going to be. So for instance, in the body somewhere, every page is going to be different. And whenever you see this, block content, end block, that part of the page is going to be different. So let me save that and go to the, let's open the home page. So here's my home page. Now, because I have the layout page defined now, which is going to be common to every single page, I can actually get rid of everything on this page that I don't need, except for the bits which are actually specific to the home page, which you can see makes it really neat, can keep it quite simple, very organized. But how is this home page going to know what is on how it's inheriting from the layout page? Well, I'm just going to get this up. At the very top, you're going to add a little line which is to do with inheritance, and you're going to type in extends layout, or whatever the name of your base template is, layout.html. And what this does, as I mentioned, it's to do with inheritance. It's an object-oriented concept. Is it's inheriting everything from the layout page. So you don't have to actually have it physically there. It's stored in one place. You write this one line and it grabs everything from that page. So we've got that. And now, remember, in the layout page we've got this block content in the body. So we need to define, we need to actually say, I'm just going to paste it actually for simplicity, that's the beginning of the block on the home page, and that's the end of the block. So let me save all of this, and you see that the home page doesn't have any HTML in it, doesn't have the style sheets in it, but if I refresh the page, it comes up with an error, and it's useful to have errors and to see how you can troubleshoot. So it says over here, line 20 in the home.html, there's something wrong there. Let's have a look. So I think what's missing here is the little curly brace there. Be very specific. If you miss even a single little line or a single little statement, it messes everything up. So let's refresh the server and you can see it works. So what it's doing now is it's put in all the CSS, which is held in the layout tab. It's added the thank you for visiting, which is on the home page, but you can see very clearly on the home page there is no thank you for visiting. That's because it's being pulled from the layout.html. Now you can do exactly the same thing with the about page. So I can delete all of this, makes it very, very clean now. And in fact, all of this, there's nothing much. I suppose this is somewhat relevant to the about page. Get rid of that as well. So there's nothing much on this about page, and anything in the about page has to be inside these block content tags there. So let's go back to the about page. First of all, extends layout.html, so it grabs everything from there, the CSS and anything else, and the thank you for visiting at the end. And also we need the block content over there and at the end. So I haven't saved the page yet, so let's have a look what it does. You can see it's just a plain about this website page. It hasn't actually got the layout page being applied to it, but if I save it and then refresh the page, you can see it's all working. So what we've done is we have in the templates folder, we've set up effectively a base, a foundational, a layout template, which contains everything that is going to be general to every single web page that we create. And you can change this, it's in one central place. And on the about pages and the home pages and any additional pages that you create, all you have to do is add this one single line which grabs everything from the layout page that you created, and also any new items or data or sort of tags that you want to add to that page will go between the block content and the end block. So this is not, I mean, this is looking pretty exciting now, but it is still not at all how we want a website to be. So we want a website to have a home page, a navigation bar, and we want it to look a bit better than this. We want it to be mobile optimized. So what we're going to do in the next video is look at all of that, and we're going to be introducing you to Bootstrap, which is amazing. So to conclude, we've done a lot of stuff in this video. You've actually looked at obviously getting back in to your virtual environment and using the command prompt, becoming more familiar with that. You've also looked at creating 2 actual HTML pages, making a templates folder, and how to use Ginger to take dummy data, which is soon going to become your database, and pass it to a page. And we've also made the layout template, which is going to form the basis of what we do for the future. Finally, we run the server and you see everything working. Now remember, if for some reason you come up with an error and you can't find out what it is, it's going to happen. You can do one of 2 things. Obviously, look at the traceback, look at the server errors, and try and figure it out for yourself. You can also refer, so if you head over to Test and Track or download this PowerPoint, you can check, and I've included the files and the content of each file on each of these slides, so you can check, you can pause the screen even, and just check to see that you've not made any mistakes. I'd also highly recommend Stack Overflow, which I'll do another video on, showing you how you can post a question in the right way and get a good response. Here's Hannah. Say hello, Hannah.
Hello, Hannah.
Oh, and would you like to answer this question, which is, the question is, ready for the question? What is the meaning of life? It's a difficult question. What do you think? What is the meaning of life?
I think. Count to 10, I'll be done by then.
If I count to 10, you'll know what the meaning of life is?
Yeah.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I know.
Wow, what do you know?
That it's being alive.
It's being alive. Interesting. I'll come back to you because I think there's more in there. Isn't there? Yeah?
And making people happy.
See, I'm not prompting this. You say goodbye.
Goodbye.